What's up, guys? It's James Allen, the Out-of-State Investor, and today we're going to go over 10 questions that you need to ask whenever you're buying a house. Now, buying a house can be a very stressful process, and what's worse is that there's so many people that end up completely regretting their purchase. In fact, 43% of all homeowners and 64% of millennials regret their home purchase in one way or another. And that's why I decided to do this video, is because I truly believe that if these homeowners would have just asked some of these questions, that they could have avoided being in this kind of situation. So today I'm going to give you the questions to ask to avoid buying the wrong house, but not only that, but also avoid buying a house that could be a complete money pit. But before I get started, do me a favor and smash that like button, and if you haven't already done so, you got to subscribe and hit that notification bell to watch more content like this. And with that said, let's jump into it. Alright, so the first question you want to ask is, how many days has this house been on the market? One of the reasons why you want to ask that question is because it can give you some negotiating power depending on how long it's been on the market. If it just got on the market, you're probably not going to have much negotiating power because they're probably testing the market out. Whereas if it's been on the market for a long period of time, they might be getting a little desperate to sell the house. They might be more willing to negotiate on price. And so knowing how many days on market there has been for this house can give you an idea of how much negotiating power you might have. It can also be a good indicator to know if there's something wrong with the house. Sometimes if the house has been on the market for 60, 90, 120 days, there might be a reason why it's sitting there, and it could be something that many people have observed when they went to go see the house or they went to go see the area, something that stood out to them that made them want to avoid that house. You also want to check if the house may have already been in escrow before, because if it's consistently falling out of escrow, there could be a good reason why that's happening. Perhaps maybe it's just bad financing on one hand from the buyer's side, or on the other side it could be major structural issues. Either way, you want to look at it with caution when they're consistently falling out of escrow. The second question you want to ask when buying a house is the house located in a flood zone? Now, other than the obvious reason that you don't want to buy a house that's very susceptible to be flooded, the other thing to consider is that when a house is in a flood zone, if you're trying to get a mortgage on it, you're going to have to anticipate paying extra insurance payments. The lender many times is going to require you to pay an extra insurance called flood insurance. Now, this could sometimes be $50 a month, it could be $500 a month. It just depends on how likely the house is to be flooded as to what the insurance provider is probably going to charge you. On top of that, when it comes time to sell the house, it's going to be likely a lot harder to sell the house when it's in a flood zone. So these are the reasons why you really want to try and avoid buying a house in a flood zone. Now, the fast way to check if your house is in a flood zone, FEMA actually has a flood map. You can actually just Google FEMA flood map and you'll likely get a link directly to their website where you can do an address search and see if your house is located in a flood zone. The third question you want to ask when you're buying a house is, how old is the roof? Roofs can be very expensive to change, sometimes $8,000, sometimes $20,000. It just depends on how big the roof is, but either way, it's a very major expense when it comes to buying a house, and so it's something you really want to consider. Most roofs are going to last anywhere from 20 to 30 years, so if you're dealing with a roof that's already in that range, then you got to budget for the fact that you're likely going to have to replace that roof. But at least by asking this question in advance, you can factor that into your negotiating, so that way you're not coming out of pocket more than you planned. The fourth question to ask when you're looking to buy a house is, how old are the major systems and appliances? Now, I'm going to separate this into two categories. First, we're going to have appliances. With appliances, you're looking at shelf life of about 15 years for each appliance. You're talking about refrigerators, your stove or range, your dishwasher, your washers and dryers, all those things. Typically about 15 years is what you want to bet on as far as the average lifespan. Now, as far as the plumbing goes, you really want to look at when the house was built, because if the house was built in the 60s or 70s or even before that, they likely use something called galvanized steel plumbing or cast iron sewer pipes. And the reason you want to avoid that type of plumbing is that plumbing is very well known for being high maintenance. Now, of course, there's still a chance that the previous owner upgraded the plumbing to maybe copper or PVC, but that's definitely something you want to check into because it makes a huge difference on your monthly expenditures. Now, if you want to be safe as far as plumbing is concerned, if your house is built after 1980, likely they used PVC or copper plumbing. Now, as far as electrical goes, you really want to avoid any kind of knob and tube wiring. You'll only typically find this kind of electrical in very old houses built in the 20s or 30s or something along those lines. Now, you also want to look out for houses with aluminum wiring because it can be a fire hazard. Now, aluminum wiring was very popular in the 60s and 70s, so any houses that you're looking at that were built around those times, you really want to be cautious and check if they have aluminum wiring. The fifth question to ask is, what is the crime like in the area? Now, the best way I've found to do this is call your local police department and just simply talk to somebody on the phone and ask them what their personal opinion is of the area. Now, they may not always share their opinion with you, but sometimes they will, and that's a good insight into what's really going on in the area. Now, aside from that, you can also check on Realtor.com and NeighborhoodScout.com. They have some great interactive crime maps that show area by area exactly what the crime looks like. The sixth question you want to ask is, what are the schools like? Now, you're not going to get a direct answer when you ask your realtor this question, but what you really want to do is go on to sites like greatschools.org because they'll give you a rating of 1 through 10 of what they rate the public school in that area that's zoned to your house. And even more than that, you really want to focus on schools as well because it's going to affect the value of your house. Typically, houses zoned for good schools are going to appreciate at a better rate than houses that are not. And that's another reason why you really want to consider buying a house that is zoned for good schools, because over the long run, when it finally comes time to sell, you can pocket more money. The seventh question you want to ask is, how much are other homes selling for? Now, this is a very important question because the worst thing you can do when you're buying a house is overpay. You may have heard the old adage, you make your money when you buy in real estate, and it is so true, that statement. At the end of the day, you really don't want to overpay because if you're only putting a small down payment, maybe 5%, maybe 10%, if you're overpaying by 5%, now you have no equity in your house. You're putting yourself in a dangerous situation to where if a market correction took place, you could be sitting underwater on your mortgage. So it's very important that you set yourself up for success by buying right at the start and not overpaying on your house. Now, the eighth question you want to ask is, what is included in the house? Now, it's going to vary state by state as far as what's in the contract language that you sign, but at the end of the day, you want to check and see which appliances are going to stay behind, maybe some window treatments or light fixtures. Either way, you want to really get a good, accurate picture of exactly what you're getting with the house. The ninth question you want to ask when you're trying to buy a house is, what will your monthly expenses look like? Now, your lender will be a great person to talk to about this. He'll be able to inform you what your mortgage payment looks like. And in addition to that, you don't want to forget about property taxes, homeowners insurance, and in addition to that, you also want to look out for things like HOA fees. Now, for homeowners insurance, you can just simply reach out to insurance agents and they'll be happy to provide you with a quote, even if you're not in escrow on the house. For property taxes, you can go to the county assessor's website where they'll likely have public information on what the property taxes is for your house. And for HOAs, that information should already be on the listing, so your realtor should be able to guide you on what the HOAs look like. But either way, your lender should have all the answers for you so he can break down all the numbers to give you the full monthly expense. The 10th question to ask, and one of the most important questions to ask, is, are there any deal breakers? Now, deal breakers are different for everybody, but for me personally, a deal breaker on a house is a house that has major structural issues or a house that has major location issues that could cause major problems when it comes time to sell. Now, for structural issues, I'm talking about things like major long-term water damage or things like foundation issues, things that could cost tens of thousands of dollars. Now, with location problems, I'm talking about the type of house that maybe it's a house sitting next to a commercial property, maybe it's next to power lines, or maybe it's a house that backs up to a major highway or freeway. Either way, it's some kind of problem that's going to make it really difficult to sell when that time finally comes. So anyways, these are the 10 questions you want to ask when you're looking to buy a house. If you enjoyed this video and you feel like you gained some value from it, do me a favor and smash that like button. And if you really like this video, then you gotta subscribe and hit that notification bell because I'm putting out new content like this every single week, and it's good quality content teaching you how to use real estate, personal finance, and things of that nature to build massive wealth for both you and your family. Also, let me know down in the comments below your thoughts, or if you have any questions questions and I'll do my best to respond to you. Finally, follow me on TikTok and Instagram at The Out of State Investor. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.